What's up, everybody? Welcome to another video. We have the TWAB right here, as you can already see. I am a little bit behind on this, so bear with me, but we're going to get right on into it. So, this week at Bungie, we seem to have written a short novel about upcoming weapons sandbox changes. Hello, dear reader. I'd like to kick off this TWAB with a quick word of advice. Never end your drafting phase with your introduction. I've been kicking this thing around for about 15 minutes now, trying to figure out the best way to launch you into yet another mega TWAB, worth of sandbox information. We've got quite a few changes planned for next season, and we're excited to start spreading the word. Let's keep our conversation about the live game short and sweet, shall we? It's an interesting week, to say the least. Master difficulty for Val the Disciple has kicked off with just a few short weeks left before Guardians begin to claim their raid titles. Grandmasters continue to push the limits of player scale, build crafting, and general gameplay strategy. Iron Banner has come and gone, but Trials of Osiris returns this Friday with some light changes to the post-flawless experience. There's still quite a bit to do, especially if you're trying to finish off each fresh try released with the Witch Queen and Season of the Risen. All said, we're having a good time, and we hope you are too. Even with the solid launch in our sales, the winds of change will always catch up to Destiny. As mentioned, we'll be talking about how those winds are shifting the sands of our weapon sandbox. Some of you know the Destiny sandbox like the back of your hand, in some cases well enough to release a 45-minute video about the intricacies of shotguns. Well, do we have some changes ready for you? I've been known to recommend grabbing a drink of water and a snack for larger TWABs, and this is no different. Take this at your own pace, have a good time, and ask questions once you're through. Our community and sandbox teams will be at the ready to issue classifications as we can, and will follow up in future posts, TWABs, or other means of communication if necessary. That's a big sandbox. In a few short sentences, we'll be passing the mic over to staff designer Chris Proctor. Chris joins us today as a representative of the team, speaking to a few hundred bullets of sandbox patch notes that were developed by a group of ragtag guardians here at the studio. Each of them contributed many hours of their time to get these changes prepped and ready for Season 17 beginning May 24th, and we're expecting Crucible strategies to shift a bit in just a few short weeks. For those who aren't in tune with the intricacies of the Destiny sandbox, this will be a lot to take in. You might need to wait a bit for a fellow community member to break down some of these changes to be less daunting. From a high level, we're covering the following today: a handful of goals from the team, Glaives, commentary on their design and some plans for future tuning, flinch and airborne gameplay and how we're pushing these into build crafting, tuning one-hit kills in the Crucible, general tuning for special ammo, exotic weaponry, legendary archetypes, and a slew of weapon perks. Let's get to it. So, remember, before the TWAB came out, like, I know people were really talking about this sandbox, so I'm curious to see like what it entails. I haven't really looked into it, so here we go. In Season 17, the Sandbox team is making changes across all aspects of the sandbox to improve the player experience of PvP. Here are the weapons team's goals to support that. Introduce levers to tune how players build for airborne gunplay. Destiny has extremely fluid and expressive airborne movement, but that movement must be balanced against grounded players lest it become oppressive. We want players who enjoy that playstyle to be able to build into it, but they'll have to make tough choices about what they leave behind to do so. Successfully engaging in the air will no longer be as simple as put on an Icarus script mod, but the upside for heavily investing in it will be higher. That is interesting because I'm curious to see what that will do for like Heat Rises in DMT, which is one of my favorite combos. So I'm curious to see what that'll do. Allow players to mitigate for flinch. Excessive flinch is a frequent complaint from players. Most importantly, when using primary weapons and taking large chunks of damage from enemies. Players should be able to invest in flinch resistance, and baseline flinch should be lower on primary weapons, but hand-tuned per archetype so that the weapons that need flinch resistance have the easiest access to it. Reduce the number of one-hit kills in PvP. Sandbox overall wants to reduce the number of one-hit kills in PvP, shifting combat more towards primary gunplay. With weapons, this means tuning special weapons, both the effectiveness of specific weapons and special weapon uptime overall. The one key primary outlier. This is what worries me. When they say the special weapon uptime, that worries me because I don't want to go back to Destiny 1 like at the end of year 3. Like, I don't want to go back to you die, you have no special. Nobody wants to do that. So if they do that, I might even quit PvP like altogether because it was just so bad. Address common feedback on the weapons across all game modes. Each season, the weapons teams looks at legendary and exotic weapons that are over or underperforming and make adjustments. Season 17 will be a larger pass than usual, with more on a focus on underused weapons and PvP balance. With our goals stated, let's get to the meat of it all. First up, glaives. I don't use glaives, so I'm interested to see what they have to say. We've noticed that several aspects of how glaives interact with weapon and armor perks don't match player expectations and want to make some time to clarify the intent. The changes included in Season 17 and the logic we'll use for future changes. A glaive melee is a basic melee attack, not a weapon attack, doesn't consume ammo and deals kinetic damage, so it's more like an underpowered punch than a sword swing. Allowing buffs to weapon damage to apply to glaive melees would be too powerful for something without an ammo limitation, particularly in PvP, where even a small damage buff would allow for incredibly fast 2-hit kills. Also, in general, we prefer to increase glaive melee damage directly, as we're doing in fact, instead of effectively making weapon damage perks mandatory on glaives. Glaives already have a long lunge distance, and increasing this at all results in unreliable behavior over the network, so no melee lunge distance buffs apply to glaive melees. Our intent is glaive melee should activate perks that trigger off base melee damage or kills. For example, ammo refill from Grave Robber, weapon damage buff 5 times stacks on Swash, ammo refill from Sealed Ahamkar Grasps. Glaive melee should not activate perks that trigger off powered melee damage or kills, or require expending subclass melee energy, such as Combination Blow or Assassin's Cowl. Glaive melee should benefit from melee damage buffs, such as Winter's Guile or Warm God Caress. Glaive melee kills should not benefit from weapon damage buffs, such as Rampage, Kill Clip, Swashbuckler. Glaive projectiles should benefit from weapon damage buffs. I like this, actually, because I felt like, I don't know if this is the case, but I don't think that the melee should get Rampage or Kill Clip or Swash. I would be absolutely busted. But I think, like, if you have the gun with it, then the bullet should do, like, something like that. I think that's completely fine. With that expectation set, there are some inconsistencies with how these are implemented in game, some of which we've already fixed, with some which we'll look at in the future. Once we have the guidelines consistently implemented in game, we may look at specific cases where this doesn't match player expectation and do something custom, updating descriptions where needed for clarification. But our primary goal is that players be able to predict how a glaive interaction will work. Here's what we changed during Season 16, largely bug fixes with some quality of life changes. Glaive projectile hits to reach maximum, the energy decreased from 6 to 4. Glaive melee can now be interrupted by Hunter Dodge. The Grave Robber perk now pulls from reserves on glaives instead of generating ammo. Glaives no longer get stuck in Clang recovery when using a melee attack on each other. Sealed Ahamkar Grasp no longer reloads glaives on projectile hits, but does on melee hits as expected. Glaive melees can no longer stunlock high health combatants, and glaive melee kills are now tracked in match history for bounties and so forth. That's nice. Here's what's changing in Season 17. We're pushing glaives deeper into the roles of hard-hitting melee damage and near-complete protection when shielded, as well as increasing projectile speed to make them more reliable at range. Note, the glaive shield grants 97.5% damage resistance in PvE, 75% in PvP, increased melee damage versus PvE enemies except for bosses and vehicles by 25%, reduced energy drain speed while shielded by 30%, increased projectile speed dependent on the range stat, as 0 stat increase from 30 to 60 m/s, at 100 stat increase 80 to 100 m/s. Exotic glaives have all been buffed, in addition to the global glaive changes, which make it easier to build energy projectile speed, making landing shots easier and energy granted per projectile hit. Titan Glaive Edge of Action. Players now grant a void overshield while they're inside the bubble. Helmut Saint 14 now applies to this bubble as it does for Ward of Dawn. Warlock Glaive Edge of Intent. Increased speed and acceleration of the healing turret projectiles. Hunter Glaive Edge of Concurrence. Triple the damage of the wave detonation. Increase the number of enemies it can chain to from 4 to 8. See, that's all fine and dandy, but, like, here's the problem. I feel like it takes a lot of effort and a lot of ammo to get the to get the exotic perk to even like show up, you know, like to get to the void overshield like bubble, the little tiny bubble, it takes like a few kills, and I don't think the melees count, so there is that. Global changes. Flinch. Aim deflection on receiving damage, typically called flinch, is a common pain point, particularly on primary ammo weapons. We've rebuilt the stability weapon stat to grant flinch resistance in addition to its other effects, with a maximum flinch resistance of 10% to 25% dependent on weapon archetype. With this change, players can build for flinch resistance more easily on weapons that feel flinch more than others, and less so on special weapons, which we don't want to be easier to use when under fire. From internal playtests, you may not feel the difference when using just one source of flinch resistance, but when stacking 2 or more sources, the benefit is strong. Note that higher zoom weapons are more affected by flinch, which we took into account when tuning these weapons. Here's the breakdown for flinch resistance with the 100 stability: 25% auto, sub, bow, 20% pulse, scout, sidearm, machine gun, 15% hand cannon, trace rifle, 10% fusion, shotgun, sniper, grenade, and linear. Oh, and rockets. Note that a stability stat of below 20 will technically have a small flinch resistance penalty, but only around 5 weapons have a stability stat in that range. Mentioning here because it's a related change, the resilience armor or character stat now grants flinch resistance of 0% at 0 stat, 10% at 100 stat. That's actually pretty good. I like that. That adds like a little bit more variety. Your flinch resistance on Titan's going to be crazy, but it is what it is, assuming you're around 100 resilience. But yeah, I like that. Examples: a 100 stat Suros pulse rifle with Suros synergy active 10 resilience, no distractions, and 2 unflinching pulse rifle armor mods while buffed by rally barricade, 90% flinch resistance. A 70 stability stat hand cannon, 5 resilience, 1 unflinching hand cannon armor mod, 39% flinch resistance. That is super cool. I really like that. I already pretty much run this normally. Probably not a 70 stat hand cannon, but like I'm getting a decent amount of flinch resist, which I really enjoy. Airborne gunplay. Before getting to build crafting, we made a fundamental change to the modifiers applying while airborne. Your primary weapons will have less randomness in projectile accuracy in most cases. You'll have less aim assist instead, but will need precise aiming to land your shots without building heavily into airborne. We've added a new weapon stat, airborne effectiveness, which is present on all weapons except those where being airborne doesn't have an effect, swords for example, which maps onto aspects of airborne gunplay using these guidelines. With little to no investment, 0 to 30 airborne stat, a character will have a smaller accuracy penalty than retail, but will have a significantly lower aim assist. With minimal investment, 31 to 50 airborne stat, a character will have around the same in-air accuracy as Icarus equipped weapons do currently, but with noticeably lower aim assist. With substantial investment, 51 to 70, a character will have better accuracy than retail weapons with Icarus, with fewer misses due to randomness, but with reduced aim assist. With specialized investment, 71 to 99, a character will have no airborne accuracy penalty with very slightly less aim assist. With full investment, 100, a character will have no airborne accuracy penalty and the same aim assist. Wow. So you give this to a hunter, and they're going to be bunny hopping all over you. So if you like to getting bunny hopped on now, just wait. It'll be even worse. But I don't think that's going to be too bad. I think most people are probably going to be around minimal to substantial. Maybe some people will run specialized, but I'll probably be in between substantial and specialized myself. Something along those lines. This stat has been hand-tuned on all exotic weapons. Everything that shipped in Season 16 or 17 and everything that's ever shipped as Trials of Osiris and Nightfall loot, older legendary weapons have a default value set per weapon archetype to a value just below the middle of the allowed stat range. Note, this will be a hidden stat at Season 17 launch, similar to aim assist and recoil direction. You'll be able to check the stat on a specific weapon through the API, and in Season 18, several previously hidden stats will be visible on the weapon inspection screen. The stat influences several aspects of airborne gunplay: aim assist cone, penalty angles, a high penalty to this angle as 0 stat, and a lower 0 penalty as 100 stat. Accuracy cone penalty angle for primary weapons, a lower penalty than currently as 0 stat, 0 penalty as 60 to 100. Accuracy cone penalty for specials, a slightly lower penalty than currently as 0 stat, 0 stat, 0 penalty as 100 stat. Headshot aim assist 0 to 0 stat, 1 degree at 100 stat on primary weapons, slug shotguns, linear fusion rifles, and machine guns, 0.5 degrees on sniper rifles. This controls how forgiving headshots are while airborne. If this is 0, you must be pinpoint aiming precisely at the head to get the headshot. Otherwise, you'll get a body shot even if your aim assist cone overlaps the head. Previously, while airborne, players would get full aim assist for headshots provided their aim assist cone overlapped the head at all. Pellet shotgun spread angle, plus 25% at 0 stat, 0 at 100 stat. More shotgun spread at low airborne effectiveness stat. What this means overall is that you'll get fewer misses due to randomness from the accuracy cone while airborne, but reliance on aiming is much higher at low stat. To make this easier, you'll need to build into airborne. With decent aim, you will land more body shots instead of crits. Before and after examples of accuracy cone penalty. Hand cannon, before 0.667 degrees airborne accuracy penalty, after 0 stat 0.45, after 60 stat 0 degrees. Sniper, before 3 degrees, after 0 stat 2, 60.8, 100 0. The airborne effectiveness stat comes from 3 sources: weapon, subclass, and armor weapon. The weapon's base airborne effectiveness stat with ranges varying from 0 to 100 and 0 to 30 depending on the weapon archetype. Exotic weapons typically get bumped up, i.e. higher stat than legendary weapons in that archetype, unless they're already extremely strong. The Icarus Grip / Adept Icarus Grip mod is a plus 15. Certain weapon perks such as the redesigned Air Assault and valid stat ranges for legendary weapons. Exotics sometimes exceeded these. Hand cannon 0 to 25, sidearm 0 to 30, auto 0 to 25. I'm not gonna read through all that. That's a lot. So higher tiers of legendary weapons, Trials, Raid, Nightfall use the upper end of these ranges, as with other stats. Some examples of exotic weapon outliers: Sweet Business 27, Merciless 15, Fighting Line 12, Sunshot 27, yada yada da. Some examples of hand-tuned legendary weapon stats: Frontier's Cry 19, Deliverance 9, Submission 27, Silicon Aroma 4, Cantata 5712, The Messenger 20, Hung Jury SR 4, 22, Dragon Hill D3, Igneous Hammer 23. Okay. Subclass: the Heat Rises ability plus 70 while Heat Rises is active on consuming your grenade. The Tempered Metal ability plus 20 after getting a solar weapon kill. The Whisper of Hedron's stasis fragment plus 20 after freezing a target. Exotic armor that revolves around being airborne or works on specific weapons grants a bonus or penalty in the -50 to +40 range or higher if conditional. Foe Tracer plus 20, Mechanier's Trick Sleeves plus 50 to sidearms, Oathkeeper plus 40 to bows, Sealed Ahamkar Grasp plus 50 for all 5 seconds after a melee hit, Lucky Pants plus 20 to hand cannons while redying a hand cannon, or readying, I'm stupid. Stompies, -50 to all. Fuck you. Stompies crutch. No, I'm just kidding. But nah, the bunny hopping on Stompies was definitely a problem, so I'm glad they addressed that. No backups, plus 30 to shotties. Actium War Rig, whoa, plus 30 to ARs and machine guns. Hollowfire Heart, plus 20 to all. Lion Rampant, plus 50 to hipfire only. God damn. Lion Rampants and DMT is disgusting, so that'll probably be super good as well. Peacekeepers, plus 40 to subs. Pairing Grinds, plus 20 to all. Eye of Another World, plus 15 to all. Astrocyte Verse, plus 30 to all. Ophidian Aspect, plus 10 to all. Necrotics, plus 30 to Weapons of Sorrow. Necrotics also always paired really, really well with Thorn, so now it's just going to pair even better, which I love. Wings of Sacred Dawn, plus 50 to all. Boots of the Assembler, plus 30 to Lumina. Redacted, plus 30 to fusions and linears. That scares me, I'm going to be honest. I don't like fusions, and I'm a Warlock main, so this means that in general, if you want good airborne effectiveness, say 70 stat, you should pick a weapon with the high stat, put Icarus on it, and either equip an exotic armor piece that equips or run a subclass aspect, fragment, or ability. And if you want the best possible airborne effectiveness, you'll generally have to go all in on weapon, exotic armor, and subclasses. Examples: Frontier's Cry with precision hand cannon bonus, Icarus Grip, Lucky Pants, 79. Yeah, we're not going to really get into all this, but it makes sense, right? So this is a big weapon system change. We'll be monitoring how it rolls out and expect to make adjustments post-ship. Fun, here's some graphs showing the most used armor exotics across each class. We'll be watching data and feedback once these changes are live to see how things shift. Oh, would you look at this? Stompies, very much used the most. I'm looking at it's tough to say. I feel like in here it's ACDCs. And I get it. Except I kind of don't. Oh, there's more, I think. No, there's not. Okay, you can't really look at everything unless there's more. Ophidian aspects. Boom! Which I don't understand, right? I think that transversive steps are much better. Much, much better. I think you should be using transversive steps over Ophidians, but this does not surprise me that people use Ophidians like this. That's crazy. That's actually insane. How much? So there is that. Playlist weapons. The latest playlist weapons drop from Gambit, Crucible, and Strike activity completions. Older weapons are available from vendor rank packages or can be focused. These weapons are intended to provide interesting drops even for players who spent a lot of time in an activity. And while we want to keep the large perk pools to address that goal, we want to provide a way to reduce the duration of the chase for players who want a specific weapon. Also, since the older playlist weapons are still available as vendor rank up rewards, we want them to feel more relevant in a post-origin trait world. Playlist weapons now have a chance to roll with extra traits in one or both columns, increasing the number of rank resets with that vendor during a given season. Note, reputation resets each season, so you'll need to play these activities each season to unlock the potential for extra perks. All playlist weapons from Beyond Light and later will drop with the appropriate origin trait. Stat display update. Following the recent change to show numbers for all stats instead of just bars, we've opted to change the stat display on weapons to more clearly reflect their capabilities. All weapon stat bars now range 0 to 100 instead of being limited to some range in the middle of the bar. This change eliminates rounding and other errors, particularly on adept weapons, masterworks, and enhanced traits. Even better conveys the bounds a weapon stat can exist within. This is purely a display change. No weapon behavior has changed, but you should expect all existing weapon stat bars to look slightly different. One-hit kills and special ammo. There are several damage buffs external to weapons that allow weapons to one-hit kill without much investment, such as aggressive sniper rifle with high impact reserve, Ariana's Vow, or Lemon, specifically when combined with an external 20% damage buff. As an example, Empowering Rift can give many sniper rifles one-hit body shot capabilities in the Crucible. Yeah, it's absolutely unfair, so I'm glad they're addressing that. Most of these use the same buff under the hood, so we've adjusted them all at once. With these changes, it's going to be much rarer to get an easy one-hit kill with a weapon that wouldn't typically allow it. Reduce the damage bonus for Empowering Rift, High Energy Fire, and Inertia Override from 20% to 15% against players. In addition, we want special ammo to be less plentiful, making it more difficult to chain special weapon kills. Disabled ammo scavenger armor mods in PvP. No matter how much ammo a player is carrying on death, if you pick up a special break, you can only get one ammo for a shotgun/sniper or 1 kill's worth of ammo for weapons that require more than one shot to kill, e.g. Forerunner trace rifles. Retuned several special weapon archetypes and exotic weapons. See below, with the general goal of reducing the effectiveness and uptime of special weapons. This is a really good change. I think that armor scavs were a problem in PvP, and now that they're just like gone for the that's really, really good. That's really good. Archetypes. Special weapons in particular. Shotguns and fusion rifles are responsible for more one-hit kills than we'd like in PvP. We still want them to be an option, but less ubiquitous. Less effective at multiple ranges with a lower uptime. Here are the graph of what's used. As you can see, shotguns mostly, then I think it would be fusions, then snipers, then glaives, then or grenade launchers. It's tough to say. And then finally the linears. Special weapons. All special weapons have had their in-air accuracy significantly reduced. While we are okay with encouraging players to build into using their primary weapons more effectively in the air, we do not believe a prevalence of airborne one-hit kill options is good for PvP. Special weapons have a slightly larger airborne accuracy penalty than primary weapons at 0. Airborne effectiveness stat reduced to 0 at 100 stat. Special weapons have a similar airborne aim assist cone penalty to other weapons around 50% at 0 stat, and this penalty can be reduced but not entirely removed by investing in airborne effectiveness. Sniper rifles are fairly slow to ready, slow to aim, or stow and aim down sights, which has made snapshot field mandatory for many used players. Reduce stow, ready, and ADS times by 10%. All the snipers are now snappier. There's a matching change to snapshot below. Sniper rifles with less access to ammo than shotguns and fusion rifles, where kills drop ammo right in front of you. So we think snipe ammo scarcity will prevent sniper rifles from spiking. Cool. Pictured shotgun usage broken out of intrinsic. So mostly light frames. Then shot package went down low, but like that's all Fellwinners users. That's insane. Slug and pellet shotguns are still overwhelmingly popular in PvP despite some recent changes, so we've touched them again with the goal of encouraging some diversity in special weapon choice. We're keeping an eye on the change since we've touched shotguns multiple times recently, and we'll adjust it if it is needed. With this change, we expect shotguns to have a shorter one-hit kill distance, but still the effective enough in that short range roll kill. This change reduces shotgun to one-hit kill distance by around 0.5 meters. Because the importance of spread angle is just as high as damage fall off, and this has not been touched. Reduced damage fall off start and end by 1 meter. Reduced aim assist and magnetism fall off start and end by 2 meters. Fusion rifle usage is trending pretty high, particularly in trials, and bringing shotguns down a little more than we would like them to be a good option. So we made a global change. With these changes, 20 meters plus fusion rifle one-hit kill should be very uncommon through a combination of damage fall off and recoil changes. Reduce damage fall off near distance, 2 meters at 0 range, 1.3 meters at 100. Reduce damage fall off far distance, 1 meter at 0, 1.3 meters at 100. Reduced recoil scalar variance between 0 and 100 stability. 0 stability unchanged at 0.75. 100 stability increased from 0.5 to 0.55. Pictured fusion rifle usage. When we rebuilt fusion rifles in Season 15, we wanted to differentiate the subfamilies dramatically from each other, which worked. Now that we've seen them in action for a couple of seasons, we're pulling back from the extremes a little. With these changes, fusion rifle subfamilies are still very different from each other, but high impacts are stronger and rapid fires and precision should be less dominant. High impact reduced unmodified high impact charge time from 1 to 0.96, increased damage per burst by 10. Precision increased unmodified charge time from 0.7 to 0.8 or 0.78, 0.74 to 0.78. Rapid fire increased unmodified charge time from 0.46 to 0.5, decreased damage per burst by 20. New charge time and damage per burst for all fusion rifle subfamilies. High impact 0.96 seconds, 330. Precision 0.78 to 80. Adaptive 0.660 to 70. Rapid fire 0.5245. Besides Divinity, trace rifles aren't as popular in hard content as we want them to be. We particularly want damage type reworks for the oldest 3 trace rifles to have a chance to shine this season, and they're also more affected by disabling scavenger mods than other special weapons. With this change, there are better use of special ammo against non-red bar targets. Increased trace rifle damage against non-red bar combatants by 20%. Increased ammo picked up per special ammo brick from 18 to 30. Primary weapons, ARs, and pulses aren't as competitive as we'd like them at mid-range, and lightweight pulse rifles are too hard to use to hit their optimal time to kill. With these changes, we expect auto rifles and pulse rifles to better compete with hand cannons in mid to long range and out range standard zoom subbies. ARs, increased damage fall off near distance by 0.75 meters. Pulse rifle, increased damage fall off near distance based on the range stat. 0 range, increase from 15 to 16. 100 range, increase from 22.5 to 24. Damage fall off far distance remains 40 meters regardless of the range stat. Increased lightweight 450 RPM. Pulse rifle damage per bullet from 15 to 16. Precision scalar with this increased precision damage from 24.75 to 26.4. This won't change the optimal TTK in PvP, will reduce the number of crits required. Yeah, I'm kind of not surprised. Zoom is too important a factor on subbies or submachine guns and submachine guns with low zoom don't feel competitive in PvP. We've reduced the variance in zoom brought the base zoom up from 13 to 14 and extended the damage fall off distance. With this change, several standard zoom submachine guns will be more competitive, but this does make the inaccessible submachine guns with high perk / trait RNG multi-mac compete less with ARs and will no longer straight up outclass every other SMG in PvP. Increased damage fall off by 1.5 meters. Adjusted zoom values on most viable legendary submachine guns and one exotic. Shayor is 17 to 16, Multimax 17 to 15, Stochastic Variable 13 to 14, Ikelos 13 to 14, Seven Sarah 13 to 14, Every Waking Moment 13 to 14, and the Huckleberry to 13 to 15. We like adaptive SMGs and are starting to make them again, but in their current form, they kill a little too fast with body shots, so we reduce body damage to increase their body shot time to kill by 1 bullet without impacting their optimal TTK, decrease body damage from 12 to 11.25, increase precision multiplier from 1.35 to 1.44. Precision frame hand cannons have always been good while airborne, effectively having built-in Icarus grip, and with the changes to airborne functionality, we wanted to preserve that feeling while translating their advantage to the new system. Intrinsic switch from 75% airborne accuracy penalty reduced to plus 25 airborne effectiveness stat. This means that if you had a Frontier's Cry with an Icarus grip mod, you would be at 19 plus 25 plus 15 equals 59 before factoring in armor or subclass. That is insane. That is really high in-air accuracy. So, moving on to heavy weapons. Machine guns still aren't where we want them to be in PvE, so we're giving them an additional buff, but less so against bosses, where their extremely long range and deep ammo reserves would make them strong in many roles. With this change, they'll shred most enemies without stepping on top tier bosses' damage options. Increased damage by 40% against PvE enemies, 20% versus bosses. Xenophage and Grand Overture receive this buff except for the bonus versus bosses. Rip in peace, Xenophage. I was really hoping it was going to be good for boss steeps, but it's just not. So, sword stats have been inconsistent for a while now, so we've tidied all these up, mostly cosmetic. Fixed several inconsistencies in stat display between different swords, so this has no gameplay impact. Increased the charge rate stat of Solar Scar from 20 to 50 to match Temptation's Hook. Rocket launcher subfamilies weren't differentiated enough by the previous change, so we've made the differences more extreme. With this change, we expect there to be more marked trade-off for the intrinsic tracking on precisions and a greater benefit for the other subfamilies specified relative to the baseline, i.e. high-impact rocket launchers. Precision, minus 10% damage, both impact and detonation. High impact, no change. This subfamily has the highest blast radius. Adaptive and aggressive, plus 10%. Exotics. All exotics that shipped before the Forsaken release now have their kill trackers visible by default. Fighting Lion needed a bit more of a buff, so we improved its reload speed when Thin the Herd is active a couple of releases back, and we're increasing its blast radius and damage. With this change, it should be easier to get that damage you need to trigger its perk. Reverted the Season 15 Breach Grenade Launcher blast radius reduction, but just for Fighting Lion, i.e. increased blast radius by 0.4 meters, increased damage by 5%. As of Tomorrow is a raid exotic, ought to be better against tough PvE enemies. With this change, it's a solid option in this role, particularly with the adaptive ordnance perk active. Increased damage versus bosses and champions by 30%. Leviathan's Breath always felt like it should absolutely wreck champions, and using its first shot to stun an unstoppable champion without it doing much damage felt bad. Archer's tempo from its catalyst is significant on paper, but in practice that draw speed buff isn't as noticeable as we'd like. Overall, we hope these changes make it feel a bit better against all types of champions and other tough enemies in hard content. The Archer's Tempo perk from the Catalyst now has an increased effect just on this weapon. The standard draw time scalar for Archer's Tempo is 0.75. It is now 0.5625 on Leviathan's Breath. That's actually really good. I felt that Leviathan's Breath was very underpowered. So that's very nice. Added a small delay before detonation on champs, minis, and bosses. This allows the impact to stun an unstoppable champion and the detonation to deal bonus damage against the stunned champion. Damage changed to be more of an even split between impact and detonation, and increased damage across the board by 50%. Overall damage versus champions is roughly doubled, even more compared to shooting in an unstoppable hand cannon. The Huckleberry had an underwhelming engagement range, updated zoom variable to, or zoom based on the change to baseline submachine gun zoom, increased stat 1315. Are experimenting with pushing Xenophage into a harder hitting but a slow firing weapon didn't pan out, so increasing the fire rate and adjusting damage back to what it was. Increased rate of fire from 100 RPM to 120, reduced damage per bullet to match the previous. Doesn't benefit from the Season 17 damage buff. Again, boss. So yeah, we get it. But that's actually really good. I'm glad they're buffing. I actually really glad they buffed Lemon Xenophage, not Lemon. Lemon needs to be burned. Lemon is too oppressive when combined with external damage buffs, but we felt that it could be stronger in PvE. With this change combined with the damage buff change above, we're introducing a 60 resilience gate on killing a Guardian in PvP with the crit, while in the Empowering Rift or similarly. Reduced poison tick damage versus players by 25%. Yes! Changed poison damage type from burn to poison. This is largely housekeeping and gameplay significant. Not gameplay significant. Increased poison tick damage versus AI by 50%. Ligma Driver can be difficult to fight against in PvP, in part because it does very high body shot damage. With this change, getting left super weak by a body shot should be less common, though we're keeping an eye on how this change lands on it and may revisit it later. Reduced body shot damage against players by 20%. This will also prevent it from being a one-hit kill. With a body shot while in Empowering Rift combined with that change, body damage reverts to old behavior when in this weapon's damage mode. Precision damage in any mode unchanged. Skyburner's Oath felt like it didn't have a niche except for airborne memes, so we've made a bunch of changes in aiming to improve its ease of use, give it some more utility, and really push it into that airborne role. Increase ADS projectile speed to 9999. Whoa, this projectile is now hit scan. Let's go, dude. Skyburners is the meta? What is this? I really like that. Both ADS and hipfire are now 150. Hipfire projectiles no longer tracks, but arcs similar to grenade launchers and has a larger detonation size than ADS. Wait, what? Okay. The hipfire detonation also applies a burn to targets. Wait, so the hipfire has a burn now? Wait, what did they do? What did they do to it? Did I miss something? The bonus range from the Masterwork has been rolled into the base stats of the weapon. The Masterwork now grants bonus reload speed instead. That's fine with me. Has the highest airborne effectiveness stat of any weapon in the game, 35. The last word plays very differently on mouse and keyboard than it does on controller, but the disparity doesn't need to be that large. We're keeping an eye on this one too. Reduced mouse and keyboard recoil penalty from 33% to 22%. Thank you. I actually like the last word. It sucks on mouse and keyboard, and that's what I play on, so glad they're finally buffing it. Arbalest is more dominant than intended in hard PvE content, able to fill the anti-barrier role as well as shield breaking and boss damage. We've made a fairly small adjustment here, but may need to look at it again in the future season. Reduced damage by champions by 25%. Will still break barriers in one hit. Graviton Lance's Catalyst didn't help the weapon enough, and we wanted to give it a bit of a boost. This change gives it some interesting utility in PvE and PvP, particularly with the buff to exotic primary weapons in the Witch Queen. Catalyst changed from granting Hidden Hand to granting Vorpal Weapon in Turnabout. Wow, that's actually kind of cool. I'm going to miss you, Hidden Hand, even though it really didn't do anything, I'm going to be honest, but that's awesome. You know, Turnabout's kind of mid, but Vorpal Weapon's not, so maybe it might even be pretty good in PvP. Grand Overture's most recent adjustment switched the missiles to bursts in fire in bursts of 5, which allows for more granularity. I can't speak in unloading that damage, but sometimes you just want them to all fly out at once. Reduce time between bursts when in missile mode. Holding the trigger will now fire all missiles in a continuous burst. Tapping will fire 5-round bursts. Coldheart arc damage type update. In Coldheart's exotic trait, or more or less being as a trace rifle, no longer fits in a world with legendary trace rifles. The ease of use on sustained damage was also pretty low. Sustained damage creates an ionic trace, and in collecting an ionic trace, grants energy to all your abilities. Increased grants grace time before the damage ramp. clears from 0.113 to 0.21 second. That's awesome, actually. I'm glad they're buffing Cold Heart, Prometheus, and Wave Splitter because they are kind of underpowered now. Prometheus solar damage type update, and generally this needed some tweaks to be viable. Sustained damage applies a more useful burn to targets. Wave Splitter void damage type update, and the wet power cycling mechanic was interesting but ultimately hard to capitalize on. Power level no longer cycles randomly. The damage output, the default damage output is the same as the old middle tier. Picking up an orb of power now grants 10 seconds of maximum power and caps at 20 seconds, up from 5 and 10. Now suppresses targets when granted this mode by picking up an orb. Osteoporosis' projectile somehow shift rotation by 90 degrees. Looks a bit weird. Corrected rotation on the projectile mode. Or model, sorry. Lord of Wolves is kind of a shotgun, but it's its own custom tuning. It wasn't impacted by the previous shotgun change and was much too strong with shotguns and fusion rifles getting reduced range. This brings it more in line. Reduced damage, fall off, start, and end by 25%. Yeah. Overall, pretty good exotic changes. I hope they don't nerf like DMT any more than it. I just keep it where it's at. I think it's pretty fair and balanced, honestly. Okay, perks. This is a long one, boys. Anyway, Snapshot has felt mandatory in snipers. With this change, a sniper rifle with Snapshot will feel about the same, but one without Snapshot will feel a lot snappier. Wait, what? Snapshot will feel about the same, but one without Snapshot will feel a lot. Oh, I get you. Increased ADS animation speed scalar from 0.5 to 0.75 for special ammo weapons. Primary ammo weapons are unchanged. Opening shot has felt mandatory in shotguns forever. That I disagree with, but whatever. In large part because it gives part of its buff as a damage fall-off scalar. This isn't something that we like on short-range weapons. You can still feel the range bump with this change unless range is already capped, but it won't let weapons push completely outside their intended engagement ranges. Removed damage fallout scalar. Increased range stat bonuses from plus 20 to plus 25. Other stats from this perk are unchanged. Plus 20 to aim assist stat, 5%. Reduced accuracy cone, 10%. Yeah. Full choke has been the go-to magazine perk forever. Justified or not, with this change, other magazine options should be competitive. Increased spread angle from 0.95 to 0.96. Narrows the spread a little less. That's fine. I'm still going to pick it. Smooth bore has always felt like an awkward magazine perk, so we're buffing it a little. Reduced spread angle scale from 1.1 to 1.075. Widens the spread a little less. Still never using that. Desperado is a strong perk in its current form, but we'd like to be able to put it on more weapons without breaking PvP. With this adjustment, it is still strong, has more PvE utility, and can be applied to pulse rifle subfamilies aside from high impact if desired. Increased fire recovery scalar from 0.41 to 0.7. Doesn't fire as fast as the perk active. That's fine. I'm not surprised by that. It was kind of busted. Reduced duration from 7 seconds to 6 seconds. Added a timer to the buff text. Remove the PvE per damage penalty. Nice. Air assault was shelved a long time ago. But adding the airborne effectiveness stat gave us the opportunity to turn it into a perk that actually does what it says on the description. With this change, airborne gunplay while wounded will be much more effective. Rebuilt now grants up to plus 60 airborne effectiveness stat when wounded. Same trigger conditions as Eye of the Storm. I'm probably never going to use that, really. I mean, I don't know. Mulligan was never quite strong enough to warrant a pick previously, but buffing it would have been risky on special weapons. With this change, it's useful on rapid fire primary weapons where you don't expect every shot to hit, occupying a similar role to triple tap but inverted. Increased chance to return ammo on a miss from 20% to 35% on primary ammo weapons. Unchanged on special and heavies. Compulsive reloader shipped a little weak. With this change, you can really feel the reload speed bump. Increased reload stat buff from plus 40 to plus 50. Added a 0.95 reload animation scalar. Adagio was allowing for one-hit body shot kill with slug shotguns. While this is possible with other perks such as Swash, the investment required to trigger the perk is much too low for that power bump. With this change, a slug shotgun in Adagio will be less of a monster in PvP, but will still be able to get headshot kills at greater range with the perk active. Reduce the damage bonus for shotguns from 30% to 20%. Mods. Icarus Grip will now grant the airborne effectiveness stat instead of its previous airborne accuracy penalty scalar. Removed airborne accuracy scalar now grants plus 15 airborne effectiveness stat. Adept Icarus Grip now grants plus 15 airborne effectiveness stat, and +5 handling. So it doesn't get the range boost anymore, is what I'm hearing? Or is it still getting the range boost? That's all I want to know. Well, that was quite a bit, wasn't it? Let it soak in for a while. You may need to read a few sections more than once to understand the technical speak behind it all. Heck, you might not really understand the changes until they're in your hands. In any case, we'll be watching the conversation around these plan changes and answering things we can where we can. Wait, more weapon talk? While the following wasn't or isn't about weapon tuning, we felt it was important to bundle the following with the mega twab of upcoming sandbox information to keep players like you in the know. Just before the last season ended, we announced a list of weapons that would be rotating out of Destiny 2 activities with little time to spare. Some of these weapons could be seen as powerhouses in previous sandbox metas, while others were just happy to be included. Next season and the season after will be no different. In an effort to keep loot pools from overcrowding as we continue to develop and release sweet new pieces of gear, we'll have a handful of weapons from Iron Banner, Nightfalls, and Trials rotating out at the start of Season 17. We're also including a list of weapons that will be rotating out in Season 18 in hopes of giving you a full season to target anything that might be missing from your collections. Leaving loot pools at the beginning of Season 17, Iron Banner, Occluded Finality, Finite Impactor. Completely fine with both of those. Both of them are mid. Nightfalls, the Comedian and the Pally. Rest in peace, Palindrome. If you don't have a Juicer McGooser roll, you better get one now. I have two, so good there. Trials, Sheora's Wrath, and the Messenger. I have a really good Adept Messenger. I have a pretty good Sheora's Wrath that's Adept, so I'm not too worried about that. Those going. Leaving loot pools at the beginning of Season 18, Iron Banner, Peacespawn Sidearm, Archon's Thunder, Nightfalls, Plug 1, the Hothead, and Trials, I Have Soul, and the Summoner. Rest in peace, I Have Soul. Make sure you get a good Adept while you can. Note, Season 18 is a ways out. Weapons included in our planned rotation are subject to change. While we don't have any firm plans to share, we can note that the team is aware of the feedback surrounding weapon rotations and availability and looking at opportunities in the future to address it. To keep expectations in check, this is likely a longer-term investigation, so don't expect too much news over the next season. Once we have more info, we'll be sure to let you know. Stay tuned for announcements on weapon rotation info and new weapons coming to each activity. Jeez. The weapon changes are crazy, man. There are a few that really stick out to me, like Skyburner. So I'm wondering if it's actually going to be a lot more viable. So I'm actually really excited to see. Near-term abilities tuning. With weapons talk out of the way, let's shift back to some near-term conversations and happenings of Destiny 2. Well, in the near term, we do have some tuning for abilities and exotic armors in the Crucible as well. Next Tuesday, April 26th, Destiny 2 hotfix 4.0.1.1 will become available with the following changes. Okay. Axion Bolt. Cooldown increased from 91 seconds to 1.52. Titan Barricade's base cooldown when the Bastion Void Aspect is now equipped is now 82 seconds, up from 53 seconds. This matches the recharge rate of Warlock Rift. Good. I like that. Offensive Bulwark now provides 60% less bonus grenade energy regeneration PvP game modes. Whisperer Chains now provides 15% bonus damage to damage resistance against players when near Stasis Crystal, down from 25%. Unchained versus PvE targets. Renewal Grasps. While equipped, Renewal Grasp increases the base cooldown of the Dustfield Grenade from 62 seconds to 152 seconds. Good, thank God. The outgoing damage penalty applied to player victims in the Renewal Grasp Dustfield Grenade reduced from 50% to 20%. Thank God. Damage and change versus PvE targets. All I see is hunters are just going to go back to Invis. And not use stasis as much is what it's going to sound about. Gambit Labs. Do we care about Gambit Labs? Absolutely not. Nobody cares about Gambit. I'm sorry. Amazon Prime loot. If you have Amazon Prime, consider picking any of these up. What is your quest? It can be somewhat tricky keeping track of every quest that Destiny 2 has to offer. On occasion, quests may be abandoned to make some space in inventory or to keep focus on some of the more important storylines a player is completing. Where do quests go when they've been abandoned? While an easy answer for some, not all in the community are aware. This week, Destiny player support has a rundown on hotfix times for the next week, as well as some general guidance for players seeking to cross a bridge on their journey to find the Holy Grail. This is their report. Contest mode, Web Emblem Grant. Quest archive, they show you where that is. Hotfix times right here. Below is some issues that are scheduled to be resolved right here. Nothing really too crazy. Known issues. While we continue investigating various known issues, here's a list of the issues. Yeah. Not really that important. Lights, camera, PvP domination. Movie of the weeks. We're not gonna really get into this. Art of the week. Wow. Very nice. 7. Wow, they still got a little bit to read. Okay. 7 is the magic number. Depending on when you're reading this, Trials is returning tomorrow after a short hiatus. It'll be another labs weekend featuring capture zones. That's unfortunate because I hate capture zones. Last time Trials was available, a pesky little bug had slipped in, granting a few additional adept rewards to players on confidence passages. Well, good news, everyone. This was sort of a feature. What? While we discussed this in the patch notes on Tuesday, I still wanted to make a moment to highlight this change. Over the last few seasons, we've seen some great feedback and data on Trials rewards. One piece of feedback specifically speaks to the flawless pool that's enabled each Sunday. While this creates a more welcoming environment for those of differing skill levels in the non-flawless pool, we have heard feedback from those in the flawless pool that things feel a bit more competitive without much of a change to rewards output. Moving forward, any player in the flawless pool who is at the 7th win of a given passage will have chances for adept weapons to drop post-match. Whether you still have flawless passage or ended up with a couple losses under your belt, you'll continue to have chances for post-match adept drops once you've reached 7 total wins. We've been working on this change for a bit, but a small issue led us to backing out from the change just before season 16 began. Through the process, an alternate bug was introduced on confidence passages, giving a slight preview of changes to come. Pardon our dust. So that was intentional. That's crazy. So like the loot was intentional, not the bug. But you know what I mean. Like they planned it on doing this, which is super cool. In any case, we're looking forward to watching the feedback roll in this weekend. I've heard this reward might be desirable for those who enjoy longer views on the battlefield. I never did snag a good roll on Redacted. Well, we all know what it is now. Longer views, it's probably the Eye of Soul. So I'll be spending some time in there this weekend. Maybe I'll see you out there. With this 9K, our editor rounds up. Behemoth of a blog article in the bag. I'm taking a few weeks off to relax in the rain, sun. You never really know during a Seattle spring. Whatever the weather, it'll be nice to spend some time focusing on physical and mental health. There's not a single doubt in my mind that I'll play some Destiny, especially some fun events on the way. But I might just hop in a car and start driving without a specific destination in mind. Maybe I'll end up in the mountain, or maybe I'll take a walk on a beach. Who knows where the road will take me? Now that we have more hands on the community team, we each have a few more opportunities to take a breather. I hope you're able to find some time this year to do the same. Be kind to yourselves, to each other, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers, DMG. Jeez, man, that was a super long TWAB. A lot of interesting information, a lot of sandbox tuning, but I don't want to waste any more of your guys' time. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider a like and subscription. Let me know in the comments what your favorite part of the TWAB was, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you guys.